Okay, it is 6:00 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Northern Regional Advisory Council meeting. This meeting is being held in person at the Weber County Commission Chambers in Ogden, Utah, and also being streamed live on YouTube. This public forum allows you to express your opinions and ideas on wildlife management in our state. This RAC considers your feedback on the proposals before us today and reports them to the Wildlife Board. The Wildlife Board, not the RAC, is charged with setting wildlife policy for our state. We all have ideas and opinions about what is best for Utah's wildlife. It's why we're here today. We encourage those who want to express their opinion to fill out a comment card. Comments at today's meeting should be focused on topics listed on the agenda. Unrelated comments will not be heard today and should be sent directly to DWR or RAC and board members for consideration at another time. We expect those in attendance to respect the people who speak, especially those who hold views that don't align with our own. Respectful behavior facilitates efficient meetings where RAC members can listen, digest, and address the concerns, ideas, and proposals being presented. Disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated, and those who engage in it will be asked to leave. Lastly, please help reduce distractions during the meeting by putting your phone on silent. And if you need to take a call, we ask that you step outside. Okay. And also, one point of business for us as we leave, as usual, we've been asked to exit out the west side of the building here. All right. Let's start with introductions by RAC members. How about we start down here with Wyatt?
Wyatt Selman, Agriculture Rep.
James Carlson at large.
Rob Dale at large.
Brian Brown at large.
Avery Cook, U.S. Forest Service.
Ross Worthington at large.
Hunter Stallings, Agriculture. Garrett Larson, Watchable Wildlife.
We also have two members online, Brandon Zundel and Jessica Wade. Brandon, can you hear us?
I can hear you. This is Brandon Zundel. I represent the public at large.
Jessica?
Hi, everybody. Jessica Wade, and I'm here representing the Bureau of Land Management.
Okay, thank you. I'm Brad Buchanan, also representing Sportsman today. We do want to recognize, can't see them all. I believe we have four members of the Wildlife Board online: Justin Oliver, Paula Richmond, Kent Johnson, and Gary Nilsson. I'd like to recognize them. And we do want to excuse Jamie Butler, Steve Sorensen, Darren Perry, and Casey Snyder from tonight's meeting. Okay, we will welcome the DWR staff, specifically those who will be speaking with us tonight: Craig Walker, Trina Hedrick, Rusty Robinson, and Dustin Mitchell. We'd like to welcome the public that are attending in person or watching on YouTube. Those that are attending in person will have the opportunity to provide comments regarding any agenda item. If you wish to make a comment, you must fill out a comment card for the item you wish to address and see that we receive it prior to the RAC discussion. The public that are watching on YouTube will not be able to provide live comments during the meeting. However, presentations were provided for viewing online. The public was able to provide comments to the RAC members for this meeting. All right, let's start with approval of the agenda and the meetings, or excuse me, minutes from the last meeting. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda and minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
We got a motion by Ross, seconded by Ryan for approval of the agenda and the minutes. Let's go. We'll go down the line on a vote. Wyatt?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. All right. We got an update from the last wildlife board meeting. Find it here, sorry. Meeting was on August 21st. So we had, the first motion was to approve the recommended changes to rules R657-42 and R657-57 as presented by the division. That passed unanimously. For the sportsman's draw and group applications, there was a motion to approve the recommendations to those rules as presented, and that passed unanimously. On the tagging requirement recommendations, the motion was to approve the tagging requirement recommendations as presented by the division with the addition of a fourth photo for evidence of sex. That passed unanimously. And for the additional cow permits that were proposed on CWMUs in northern Utah, the motion was to approve the additional permits as presented and allow the division to work within the rule to make adjustments and additions as necessary. And that passed 4 in favor with 2 recusals. And for the additional drought permits on the bison on the Henry Mountains, the motion was to approve additional 19 bison permits on the Henry Mountains as presented. And that passed unanimously and had a change to the CWMU Advisory Committee. The motion was to approve the membership of Gary Webb as a member of the CWMU Advisory Committee, and that passed unanimously. Any questions from the last board meeting from anyone? Okay. All right. Go to the regional update, Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so this will be very brief. We did one of these, it seems like just a couple weeks ago, so I'll just hit on a few highlights that's happened in the region. We can move on. I want to first touch on some of the opportunities for our big game permits that are still available in the region. We have some archery permits as well as quite a few units that have muzzleloader permits available. So if you're still holding out, there's still time. There's still permits available if you're interested in those. We do also have elk permits as well. We still have about 3,700 of the any bull ERDI permits. So apparently when you make those unlimited to some extent, they don't sell out. So it's kind of interesting to see that. So elk opportunity as well for archery, muzzleloader and rifle if you're interested in getting a permit. Next slide. In aquatics, we still have some surveys going on. We're wrapping up most of our field work, but there's still a little bit of work going on with some Bear Lake, our Bonneville Cisco, cutthroat trout, western pearl shell, some crayfish stuff, as well as some winged floater. Our biologists are wrapping those up and getting ready to move out of the summer field season here pretty soon though. For the Great Salt Lake, we just recently completed a large western U.S. shorebird survey. We also are doing some botulism research out in the Great Salt Lake. It's been a pretty mild year this year. Sometimes we'll see tens of thousands of birds die out there. This year we really haven't seen too many, so we're crossing our fingers that that's how the rest of the summer ends up. We also have our biologists out spraying Phragmites. It's a big effort that we do about 4 to 6 weeks a year of spraying Phragmites in August and early September. So we're about to wrap that up as well. A few more weeks of that and we should be done. Our habitat section, we just recently completed another committee meeting for our East Canyon WMA. We'll be starting the writing process for that management plan, and we hope to have it finalized in the winter or spring of 2026. At that point, we'll start doing some work on there. We've got some great ideas that came from the committee and our biologists, so we're excited to start managing that property and doing some good things out there. Our outreach program, we've got a pretty cool Facebook post. I think I may have highlighted this last time, but we put a structure out in Pineview recently. It really provides a lot of great habitat for small fish like perch and other things like that that can get away from the muskie and some of the other predators in that lake. These are pretty cool projects. If you see them out there throwing these out in the water, you may wonder what they're doing, but overall they're a great habitat and should really help to contribute to making the fishery better. Our law enforcement staff, they've been helping out with fires around the state. Most recently, the one up in the Uintas and other ones as the need arises. It's been some pretty intense fires, as you've all seen, but it should be helping to make some really good habitat here in the future. And we're also, oh, you're good. Also just citations. There's some of those that we've been issuing as well for people using cameras and baiting as well here in the region. Our wildlife program, we're wrapping up our pronghorn elk classifications. We've also been busy doing CWMU applications, getting those submitted, as well as some depredation activities and some bat surveys that have been taking place in the region. We also have a new vacancy here. So many of you may know Dave Smedley. He's our North Slope biologist. He was recently promoted to our Central Region Wildlife Manager. So he'll be filling that role here starting next week. That leaves a vacancy with his district, the Summit District, as well as a new position we're hiring in the region as a landlord specialist. That'll be specifically to be helping with depredation in the Box Elder County area. We also recently just finished our mule deer meeting. I know some of you in the region attended that. That was held on August 31st. We got some really good feedback, had some pretty good attendance as well. So we'll be using that feedback in upcoming projects and things in the region. So we plan to share more information about that. So we'll try to keep everyone updated on what's going on with those committees as well as future projects. Also wanted to point out, we just recently added a mule deer page to our website. It's kind of the hub for everything you may want to know about mule deer. Got a lot of information there about habitat. We've got a pretty cool table there that you can interact with and look at a lot of harvest statistics and unit statistics, predator work. Just if you want to check that out, it's a really cool resource for a lot of stuff that's going on with mule deer here in the state. But lastly, we do have some opportunities if you want to get out and do some stuff with our biologists, and we do have some elk and pronghorn classification going on. If you want to participate in those, let me know. I can get you in touch with biologists and we'll try to get you out and learn more about what's going on in the region. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Blair. Any questions for Blair on the regional update for anyone? All right. Go to agenda item number 5. This is just an informational item, but this is on the statewide angler survey results. You get to do them both?
Yes, Craig
Okay.
is out of town, so.
Okay. I think anything you want to briefly summarize or anything
No,
beyond that?
I just think it's really interesting and kind of exciting to see the impact that fishing has on the state to the state's economy. I was blown away by the numbers. Yeah, so I think it's impressive. I just think it shows how important fishing is. And it also gave us some really good insight into how we can, the opportunities that we can try to preserve or even maybe increase to be able to provide more opportunities for people depending on what they're seeking. So it was some good information that we can take away as well.
Okay. Any questions from RAC members? All right. Well, it's just an informational item, so no action there. So as far as the Blue Ribbon Economic Survey results, any questions, RAC members, on this one? Well, you mentioned in the presentation, one of the, can't remember the exact comment, was wanting to make the public aware, but almost not too aware of some of these places. Is that
Right.
so they're not getting overrun?
Yeah, I mean, you see it time and time again where someone posts specific information and that like on Facebook or some form of social media, and that people see that. A lot of people can see that, and that just directs them to that location. And with that many people, they're likely to not have that same experience. So the idea would be to just remind people that you don't have to go to that one little lake in the high Uintas. There's a whole, there's 14 drainages up there, some further in than others. Some are a really short hike in. So just as an example, though, the Uintas is a large area with tons of opportunities. So, and that would spread people out on the landscape as well. And you wouldn't have like one little lake get just hammered. So that's the idea.
How many waters do we have that are classified as blue ribbon in the state total? Do you know?
I believe, so I'm probably off by one or two, but I believe it's around 43, 44.
Okay.
Like that.
All right. Questions? I know there was pretty impressive numbers when you look at the financial impact.
It really is.
I don't know, I obviously there's got to be some correlation with the bump in license sales that we saw from 2020 on. You would think would help contribute to the jump in the financial impact.
I think that's a small, just based on the things that people were spending money on that they used to do those calculations, right? So like, yes, license sales were in there, but the bigger things were lodging and gas and groceries. And even those, there was a definite increase. And I did talk with Dr. Kim before this meeting. So some of the stuff is some of that increase and what we attribute that to is in the presentation, but I have more information. And it is far more than just what inflation would account for even between the 2011 and 2023 results. So it's, he's directly attributing it, like a smaller part of it. So it was $84, I think, was the average expenditure to go fishing back in 2011. Now the average expenditure is about $188. So he expected about $30 just using the inflation calculator. So that's a pretty significant increase, far above inflation. And then he just talked about the rise in income, and that has likely been a big driver. And when you look at what people are spending money on, it's rentals. They're spending more money on rentals. They're spending more money on gas. They're spending more money on groceries. All of these things, and it's more than what you'd expect from inflation. And it just, his hypotheses are that people are going for longer. They're buying higher quality, higher end products like GPS units and fish finders and things like that. So it's more than just license sales. I think it's probably much bigger than just license sales, and it's even more than just inflation. People are really seeking more opportunities, I guess, out there and taking more advantage, longer trips, and really it seems like they're honing their fishing, if that makes sense.
I think you mentioned at the end of that potentially changes coming in maybe some of the management strategies. How soon before we start to see some of those proposals coming through?
Yeah, so we've already implemented certain things, right? Like you're always responding, right? And responding to people's concerns, questions, requests even. So we've tried to incorporate that more, I'd say, over the last decade or so. But right now we are finishing up a much larger effort to address some of these things and incorporate some of our daily management planning into what people are wanting, what they're requesting on the landscape. So we're kind of finishing up that plan. We all have a draft that we're assigned to review for over the next month or so. So I think that once those reviews are finished, we'll have to probably do some revisions. You probably will start seeing things happen on the ground next year, but we do also have an outreach effort that we're planning to, so that people aren't surprised if there's, and I don't expect major changes, boom, right away, right? These things are always gradual. But if people might start seeing different things over time, but we're, we'll definitely let them know why we're doing any changes that we make and any changes that are implemented. Just thinking broadly here too, like for example, if we have to change stocking at a water body because we, no longer can sustain a certain species there and we have to switch species, right? We'll let people know. It's not just a change and that's that, and no big deal, right? No, we'll let people know what we're doing, why we're doing it. And then also you can bring in the positives from, that yes, most people are still seeking cold water fisheries, but there is an increasing number of folks that would like warm water and cool water. And so it's like, oh, we're just trying to provide more opportunities for all of our anglers. So we're hearing you and also, trying to I guess, to just make changes as needed based on what we're seeing on the landscape too.
Thank you. Any other questions from RAC members? Okay, do we have any public feedback on this?
Nope, no public feedback on either of those.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 7, mid-plan review for mountain goat and bighorn sheep with Rusty Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's make quick. Any highlights you'd like to touch on or clarifications you need to make?
Maybe just to reiterate what I said last night at the Central Region RAC, that the committee was overall pretty happy with these plans. They thought they were, well-written plans. They were very forward-thinking at the time when they were originally written in 2018. The Bighorn plan in particular really forged a lot of friendships and partnerships and inroads with the ag community. We take a stance in there that we support the ag community with regards to Bighorn, and I think that's gone a long way and really helped build some beneficial partnerships there. And overall, they're pretty happy with these plans, and there wasn't a lot of changes to make. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Start with any questions from RAC members. All right. Any questions from the public? Okay. Let's summarize public comment on this one. Do we have some?
Yes, we did have one response on this. It was a neutral vote for the item, and then a few comments. The comments were towards asking the division to focus more on sheep rather than goats. They also wanted to encourage public land agencies to try to find ways to reduce conflicts with sheep on the landscape and just provide more opportunity for wild sheep.
Okay, we have one public comment card for this agenda item. I'm going to guess this is Sierra. Not that your handwriting isn't legible. It's just
again. Hello. I know you guys miss me, right? Sort of. No.
always.
My name's Sierra Nelson. I'm with the Utah Wool Growers Association, but I also sat on the Bighorn / Mountain Goat Committee and participated in the mid-year review. I just wanted to come and express our extreme gratitude for being able to be a part of the process. It's been pretty amazing to see such a important shift over the last, 7 years? My math doesn't math. I got my shoes on. But the plan itself is written well. We really appreciate the division standing behind agriculture and allowing us to be able to have the COR, and saying that they're not going to grow bighorns at the expense of domestic sheep is huge. It's absolutely huge. And I know that we can find win-wins, and I really appreciate the process. So we support it. We ask that you support it, and we thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right. Open it up for RAC discussion.
I'll just add to what Sierra said. We're from the sheep side of things. We're just very appreciative with the division and especially that stance in that plan that talks about that. Like Sierra said, I think in all the Western states, Utah leads the way, and especially with bighorns, with the relationship with ag and taking a stance and realizing that there's room for both, on the landscape. And there's going to be certain instances where there's going to be problems that can be resolved, but that's what the COR fixes. And it's just, it feels good to feel like the division has our back from sheep producer standpoint.
Yeah. I think over the years that relationship has seen some highs and lows, I think, and recent history has, we've had some good progress made, I think, around the state and some of the introductions with bighorns to certain areas, but working with producers and being able to find that balance that comes there, because there's a place for both. And I think it's a lot of progress. So appreciate the efforts from the division side, but also the willingness from the producer side as well, because that's a two-way street. So. Okay. No other comments? We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make motion to approve the mid-plan review as I guess as it is on there.
A second.
Got a motion by Wyatt, seconded by Hunter, to approve the mountain goat and bighorn sheep mid-plan reviews as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, call for a vote. Ryan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Garrett?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Hunter?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
And Brandon?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yep.
All right, agenda item number 8, Southeast Region Big Game Management Plan with Dustin Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The clarifications or anything you'd like to summarize for us today before we get into questions?
No, it's pretty straightforward from the presentation.
Okay. Start off with any questions from RAC members. No.
This is maybe a question from ignorance, but the increase in the objective, does that fit within the Mueller plan that came out last year, the 404.9, or is that now we're increasing the objective numbers based on your new target objectives with the increases?
Yeah, so this is just unit management plan
Yep.
separate from that. So those, if we got to that, they would add to our total statewide objective.
Yeah, so there's the state.
Is based off of the region.
It's it's all the unit-wide
sum of
management
the
plans
units,
added together. So yeah, it would change that slightly. So, so one of these, probably the LaSalle being the main unit, since we've had disease concerns there for years, we'll just call it that. And now we're talking about raising the objective. It just seems a little counterintuitive maybe, because on one hand, we're trying to harvest more and keep prevalency of CWD down, but we often reference that to deer densities and the way that's spread. And now we're looking at raising the objective. How are we managing that within this?
That's an excellent question. And so 2 plans ago for the LaSalle's, we were at 13,000 is what our objective was. In the last plan we went down statewide, we looked at different objectives to see if they were even reasonable to get to. And we saw that one was probably out of line. Let's go down to 8,000. And so since then, and in the presentation, you saw we're using the same model that we've used, but we're using our data now that we're collecting for the variable inputs in that. And so it didn't increase the number of deer that we have necessarily. It just stepped it up to where we really probably were. And so looking at those data now, it looks like, well, would be above the objective from where we sit now. And so we're looking at going to 11,000, which is lower than the 13,000 that we've been to. We look at the habitat trends there, haven't seen anything negative that way. Production in that and deer body condition has been reasonable. And so we felt like we can still grow the deer there if we needed to. What we are doing though is looking at the buck segment of the population, which are really the ones that are spreading probably the majority of that disease just because of how they travel. And we've got some CWD hunts this fall that'll start in this winter. And so and most of the hotspot for CWD is around Moab, a little bit around Castle Valley. And so we're focusing those hunts in those areas to try to limit that spread that way through hunting. But but feel like we could still raise the population a little bit.
Is this the first year of those hunts?
Yeah.
Okay. I know there was some discussion last night, and maybe you can, I don't know if there's a concise way of being able to help us understand I'll just call it the changes in the modeling that basically showed, however the modeling changes all of a sudden showed us that 2,000 or 3,000 more deer than we thought we had.
Yeah. So like I was saying, it's the data that we're collecting now from all these coloring projects that we're doing. We're including that instead and putting those values in place of, in the past, they would have been constant variables, maybe an average even. The way that we looked at it, there was different models that compete. You plug those values in, and then it takes, some of them are constant, some are time specific, and it just looks at whichever model had the least variables put in there, and it picks that model to use. It says that was the best model to use for that population. So now we're actually forcing that model to use our data instead of selecting from maybe one that didn't fit as well, but gave you less penalties. And so it's using better data throughout the year, and it shows probably more accurate representation of where we sit.
So we believe that our input data has gotten better, which is in turn giving us better modeling than what we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For each unit specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, we're using unit-specific data instead of statewide generic data for the model inputs.
Yeah, or even just constant data from those units. Yes.
Any other questions from RAC members? Okay. Any questions from the public? All right. Any public feedback on this agenda item?
Nope, we didn't have anything on this one as well.
All right. No public comment cards, so open it up for RAC discussion.
Yeah, I only got just one thought. I just, obviously, I think biologically it sounds like we can raise the objective, and obviously the objective number is just an objective of where we would like things to be. I do think there's obviously a perception out there in the public that, our deer herds are not good in the state. I don't feel that way from the places I hunt, but I know other people do feel that way. And so even though it's just an objective, and that's where maybe the carrying capacity of the landscape is, and I know it's just a number, it concerns me there might be even more public feedback, negative public feedback saying, we come around to issue tag numbers and our objectives, 450,000 deer and we're at 280,000, and we're issuing deer, buck permits, which obviously we know isn't what's going to affect the herd, but the public has that misperception and is increasing these numbers across the state. These objectives going to just worsen that kind of thorn in the uneducated side of things.
I'd say my thoughts a little bit echo the same, right? We increase that objective, and now I just go to when the tag numbers come out, people are gonna be like, why are we issuing tags if the objective's X, right? Everybody wants to see. I wasn't able to go to the Northern Mule Deer meeting. I ended up making it down to the Central, and again, it's the two things that don't connect in the sense of that people think, okay, well, not issuing buck tags grows more deer. And it's like, that's not the biology. That's not what the science tells us. And so my only, concern is the public side of it. In that later point of, hey, the objectives here, why are we issuing this many tags? And also around the concerns of that CWD. On that CWD hunt, fairly new, how's that managed? It's obviously easy to see when you're doing a management for cactus bucks and things like that, but how is that hunt managed? How's someone supposed to, you just picking out deer that are sick, or how's that hunt gonna go down? Sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just an antler hunt.
Yeah, it's a regular hunt. We have such a hot spot there that we're trying to target those deer, but and it's mostly in older age class bucks, which is what people are going to try to focus on.
Yeah, you're just hoping like timing wise that they'll hopefully
During the
kill a bunch of CWD bucks. Ideally.
Yeah, and it's mandatory testing for it.
Forgive me for not understanding how that works. So the chronic wasting disease is in the animal, mandatory testing. You shoot one, it comes back positive. You can keep the antlers. You don't want to consume the meat or tan the skin or do anything with the rest of it, or
Yeah,
how does
it's
that
it's
work?
kind of a quandary, isn't it? But yeah, it's up to the hunter if they want to consume that meat or not. We advise not to. They can keep the antlers.
And then it's, so you use your points or your tag just for a chance at antlers and a chance that it might not have chronic wasting disease.
Yeah.
There's no, if it tests positive, there's no reissue of it.
No, we used to do that, but we don't do that anymore. It got out of
That's
hand.
what I thought they
Yeah.
went to, so.
Any other comments from back north?
With the increase in the population estimate, are tags being adjusted?
So we'll look at that when we do our postseason
Okay, so not for this year.
classification. Yeah.
Does that CWD just show up in the older class animals? Is it there dormant in the younger ones?
Can be. We're
Is that
doing
how
some
it's
research
working?
right now to look at that, specifically on the LaSalle's and a couple other units. But yeah, we're learning some things about it. So still not really clear, but that's when it displays, when you start seeing clinical signs most, is in those mature animals.
But it's not just a mature buck hunt, it's a buck hunt.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to add, I just appreciate the work you guys are doing. And there's been a lot of complaints over the years with it being from the public and everybody to be about how you guys come about your numbers. And, you know, it's shocking to see the increase in the objective, but it's also like, well, trust the science. I mean, you guys are trying to do something different and outside the box of what's been done. And I just want to credit you guys for doing that. Might not be the results that we all thought might come from it, but I just anyways appreciate the division constantly trying to do more studies, do more work, and kind of being the leader, I feel like, in the mule deer, community in the West. Anyways, appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to echo those sentiments and build on them. I appreciate something proactive being done about chronic wasting disease and looking at what tools we have and then using those tools. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into setting population objectives. I am a little curious, and maybe, I don't know, Blair, Jim, or Kent, I don't know. Is this, I don't even want to call it necessarily changes to the modeling, but is the same strategy being used when we're setting the population objectives on the units in northern Utah too, or is this just like the start of this coming through the state? Does that make sense? Oh, we're getting Ken and Jim. Oh, yeah.
I'll kind of give a statewide perspective and let Jim talk specifically on it. So, as you know, we've been collecting data. So I'll just start back from the beginning. What the inputs in the model are: buck-doe ratio, fawn-doe ratio, adult survival, fawn survival, and then harvest. And so for the past 15 plus years on units throughout the state, we've been collecting that survival data, and we've been adding it to the model every year. So each year, we're modeling 4 years of data, 5 years, and just keep adding to it. So we keep adjusting those models and updating those models annually. And as we get better data, we'll get better models. And early on, and this has kind of been shown kind of across the West, most studies have said, and most states even do this still, that adult survival is constant. Well, when we start seeing all this data, that's just simply not true. It's not constant. So when we see some of those things and we're running these models with a constant survival, it had a tendency, specifically in the Southeast, to say, hey, if your survival is actually higher than it is, and to get a resultant change in buck-doe ratio, your population was lower than it is. Well, when we updated that and started adjusting for real values that we saw, the results changed. It's like, no, you're actually at this level, not down one. So every year, each population unit will be modeled, and as we update these management plans, we'll look and see the values and do they need updated. So yeah, it's going to happen, and we're going to keep doing it. And if the data says we need to revise it, we will. But I don't think you'll see every unit in the state get revised. It's just a handful that have been probably more effective than the others.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that too, is we get to the region level, in order to adjust a population objective, we got to go through the committee as well. We got to look at all the different factors. I mean, you guys represent different factors. We bring that into a committee framework as well to discuss that. But Ken is absolutely right, and Dustin. Our models have been changing as well as we get better data, which everybody should be elated about, as excited as we are. And it doesn't mean we did anything wrong before, because we were using the best quality data. We do use the best quality data every year, but we are continuing to improve on that as well, which will adjust our numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And just one other thing to add, I believe is it next year that we do our management plans in the northern region? Yeah, the next year or two we'll be seeing those.
All right. Any other comments from RAC members? Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the Southeast Region Big Game Management Plan as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right. A motion by Rob, seconded by Wyatt, to approve the Southeast Region Big Game Management Plans as presented. Any discussion on the motion? All right, call for a vote. Ryan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Garrett?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Hunter?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Okay. That's the last agenda item for the evening. So we want to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Sounds good. Thank you.
42. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Is that a record?